Welcome to a new workshop. My name is Julia. I'm going to be your host for the next hour, the communications manager for the European Scout region. And well, this is just me saying welcome. We're going to wait a couple of minutes to see if there's anyone else that wants to join, and they're a little bit late. I want to let you know that there's French interpretation available for the ones that want to have it or they need. If not, you can stay in the English channel. Can we do a small exercise before we start? I would like to ask you to write in the chat which organization are you coming from and what's your role within the organization? What do you think? Can we do it? Okay, let's get it started. So before I give the floor to Daniela and Myles, I'm going to ask Angel if she can give you a run through the social media calendar for the month of April. So whenever you want, the floor is yours.
You're on mute, Angel.
My bad. Sorry guys, it's later in KL. I'm a little bit sleepy. Let me just share my screen. Sorry, can everyone see my screen? Because I don't think you can. Nope, bear with me again. Let's try that again. Still not?
I think it's coming. It's black, but it's getting there, I think.
No, you're gonna have to redo it.
Okay, let me try third time's a charm. Cannot. No. Okay, that's something. That's a new one.
Share the link.
Yeah, if you share the link with me, I can share my screen.
Okay, that will be super helpful. I'm not entirely sure why that's not working. Here we go. Sorry, I just sent that directly to my, there you go. If you can just share that, that would be great. Wonderful. Thank you. And then yes, we're just going to look at April to start. So Sorry for the rocky start, guys. I hope you're all well. And as we are 2 days away from April, I want to just run through the editorial calendar and what's coming up this month. So the key focuses this month for World Scoutings, socials is we have World Health Day coming up on April 6th. Assets will be in there very shortly. We just need to repurpose some content that we captured at Joti Joti that was made for some of the workshops. So we're going to be sharing that very soon. It'll be there by Monday. So you'll be able to use that. And we have also Earth Day, as if there can never be too many days for the Earth. There's a lot coming up this month and next month. So on April 21st, we have Earth Day. We do have an older campaign in there that you are still free to use. It's still very relevant. The stories template is super cute and a great way to get scouts to kind of be talking about it on the day. But just know that there is a new campaign in the works that should be in early April. And then we also have, if you can just scroll down, Julia, we have April falls on March on April 1st. I don't know why it's saying March there. I'm not gonna let you know yet what you can expect to see from World Scouting, but make sure you tune into our social channels on the 1st and see if you fall for our trick or if you are going to believe it. We have Easter coming up on April 8th. Excited to share that we have our Scoutfluence network creating a video explaining how Easter works. For those that don't celebrate the holiday, you can expect something similar to what Andrew created for Lunar New Year. On April 15th, there is Good Deeds Day. There is a caption suggestion in there, but of course, I'm sure there's plenty of good deeds that you can share from your region. But there's just an example of something that you can share in there. As always, you can click on the cards and it opens up and there's more details and assets inside. On April 11th, we have the International Day of Human Spaceflight. Again, if you have done any exciting space-themed activities at camps or anything like that, feel free to share that on that day. And on April 20th, we have World Creativity and Innovation Day. And then if you scroll down again, there's also on April 20th, marks the end of Ramadan. So we have Eid, which we will also be sharing another video from a Scoutfluence to highlight the end of the month of fasting. And just as a FYI, there is Flor, one of our youth representatives, is heading to the KISC Youth Forum in New York. So expect some coverage from her across World Scouting socials in that time. And they're all the key things that are happening in April. So I hope to see lots from you across your socials, and let's ensure that we stay up to date with each other and engaging with each other's profiles across social. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. So without any further delay, I'm gonna give the floor to Daniela and Myles. They are coming right from Switzerland. They are based in KISC. Daniela is the manager for PR and marketing, and Myles is the assistant for PR and marketing. So tell us more about your Boosting Your Brand presentation.
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting us. Hi, everyone. I'm Daniela. This is Myles. And thank you very much for joining us today. So today we're going to talk about boosting your brand and how to effectively market your event. Just a quick disclaimer that we're focusing this on like large scale in-person events, but that doesn't mean some things will not apply to smaller events or online events. So take this as it is and adjust whatever you need to adjust for whatever event you're doing. No. Okay. So we're going to cover a lot of things today. This is how the agenda looks like. I promise it's not as long as it looks. But the general aims or in the learning outcomes for this session are to better understand how to tailor your marketing to your event, how to brand it, and how a communications team can look like for this event. So let's get into it now.
So you might think that you have a very big based audience, so you don't need to market your events. But the biggest thing is that marketing brings your events to success. So since there's different events, it is important that you brand your event in different ways, depending on your audience and who your event is for. So, for example, if you have an event with rovers, it is important to market your event for rovers, to tailor your whole brand towards rovers, to make sure that you are attracting the audience that you're in the first place looking for.
So exactly how Myles, as Myles said, you need to understand who your target audience for the event is going to be. And for this, you need to establish as well, like what the event is and who is it for. So you would need to know details from all the teams that are planning the event. So of course, this is only for communications teams, the training, but of course, you're going to have more teams working on it. So program people working on the activities that everyone's going to do, logistics, and everything else. So something that you would want to know about this would be also how many participants you are expecting to show up and how many you can comfortably accommodate. So give it a range so that you also know how to market your event better. Then of course, understanding your target audience. This is very important. It's the first step for a well-branded event, and you should be specific with them. And if you feel the need to have more than one target audience, it is always better to have that, other than just marketing an event for, oh, it's for everyone, all ages, all genders, because that will not be effective for this. And you can also segment this target audience into personas. So for instance, what age range are they? There's scout section and role, because this is for scouting events. Channels, how can you communicate with them, and pain points, so maybe some obstacles that can prevent them from going into the event. So for instance, you might want a persona that is about leaders, some that is a rover, or some that is a cub, depending on what kind of event you're doing. So this is an example of what a persona can look like. So this man running is named John Smith. For this example, let's pretend he's 20 years old. He's a finance student in university. He's based in Lisbon, because that's my reality, and that was easier for me to think about. He's a rover. You can reach John from Instagram and TikTok, because those are the social media channels that he uses the most. Then pain points, let's pretend that this event is in summer and it's the peak time for exams in university for John. So that will be something that will prevent him to go to the event. And of course, John has wants and needs. So he wants to graduate with good grades. He wants to go on a World Scout Jamboree someday as an international support team. And he likes outdoor activities and rock climbing. So this was an example of what a persona looks like. And the more detailed you are, the easier it is for you to target your event to the right person and the right audience. Oh, it's not working. Okay.
Okay, so now we're talking about brands and how to brand your how to market your events regarding branding. It is important to understand what that branding looks like. And the branding isn't just visual. That branding is how you talk about your event, in your tone, in what you say about the event. It's about your photo styles, your writing. It all comes together as your branding for your event. So It is also possible that for your event, for example, your branding doesn't really match the branding that you have for your NSO or for your region. It is all possible, and it's okay if they don't look alike, as long as they are connected in some ways. For example, we have at KISC, we have our 100th year celebration this year. When you look at our centenary celebration branding, it is different from our usual branding what we have. But on the other hand, it is still the same branding, and it's okay if it doesn't completely match up, because it is different, as long as it's connected and people know that it is from the same organization or NSO or whatsoever. And as long as you match your audience to your brand. For example, if you have an event for Cub Scouts, you use basically very playful visuals. And if you have it, for example, for conference leaders, you would have still visuals, but less tailored to the persona themselves and more towards the event and what you're going to be talking about in the conference.
Yes, so then during the planning, you have to think about press relations and the communications plan for the before, during, and after the event. So this plan should go through everything that is going out from your communications team to the world. And it should be targeted to a general audience and your targeted audiences. We're going to go a little bit more into detail on the general audiences as well. But it is very important that you create a timeline to promote your event, because it requires different kinds of promotions at different times. And you want to gain as much awareness on the event as possible before it happens, so you can get more people to apply and to want to go to the event beforehand. You want to collect a lot of media during the event, so you can use it in future posts for social media, future newsletters, or just to promote something. And then you would also like to show people after the event how successful it was. So this is all different requirements for your marketing and your promotion about the event. And of course, the timeline is going to change depending on how large your event is, the resources you have, and your local reality. I think this is very important to keep in mind, because our reality here at KISC is not going to be the same as me and my scout group hosting one event for our local community. So again, focusing on a large scale event, in-person events, if it's something that requires a lot of logistics, you would have to start 2 years before, 1.5 years before. And during this 6 months, so between 1.5 years to 1 year before the event, you want to focus on your awareness, like I said. So for this, you can create a landing page on a website, create an announcement email, send circulars to whoever you need to send them to. So be it your national leadership in your NSO, be it your local groups. Then 1 year to 6 months before, you want to focus on attendance, so you can start getting more people applying to go to the event. And for this, you can use cross-channel marketing, which means basically you use the channels that you have at your disposal for this. So you use social media, you can use newsletters, you can use emails, you can use the website, pop-ups, ads on internet, whatever you can get your hands on, honestly. Always focusing on your audience and the people you want to target for this. Then 6 to 3 months before, you prepare for hosting. So there are more things in communications that you need to think of when it comes to hosting an event. So you can remind participants of the essential information they need. And of course, this would have to be coordinated with your other departments that are planning this event. So the program department might need people to bring a certain kind of shoes or clothing for their activities, and this is information that needs to be sent out to your participants. So you should remind them of this information, schedule content on partners channels. So for instance, if KISC and WASM are partnering, we would talk to each other and plan what content we would post or what kind of things we could need from them, or the other way around. Then you have 3 months to 1 month before the event, and for this time you can, for example, post behind the scenes content, plan tasks to do during the event. Then 2 weeks to 1 week before, you do the last minute updates, because no matter how well you plan, you know, everything, there's always something that comes up that you forgot about. So we deal with this during the weeks before the event. Then it's time for it. It's happening. It's during the event, you can share photos and videos using an hashtag that you created. You take pictures, you take videos, and you store them as well for future use, and you share them in your social media during this time. And then it comes after the event. So, you know, you feel like, oh, like this feeling of relief because the most chaotic part is done. But unfortunately, event marketing doesn't end when everyone is home after the event happens. So for the communications team, this means that you can post highlights on social media, send statistics of participation, write an article. And so this is like an overview of what a timeline can look like. And moving forward, 2 things to consider.
So for things to consider, it is very important when you identify your target audience to also consider that in your post. For what you post, how you post it, how you write your captions, and who you're trying to attract. And it's as well really important on the kind of channels that you use. For example, are you going big? Are you going to national news outlets, or who are you attracting to get more people to your event? And if you are in fact getting more people to your event and you want to have more channels, for example, the newspaper, newsletters that you wrote, scouting magazines that you might be contacting, it's very important that you have a clear message ready when you are talking to them, or when you're in the middle of an interview about your event, or whether you're just writing an article for them. So it's very important to have a few things ready before you go into a big process like that. For example, identify your key messages. These are the messages that are short sentences, maybe five words in a sentence, to very strongly describe your event, what you want to accomplish with the event, and what the participants will be feeling and what they will be accomplishing during the event. You can also set goals and KPIs. KPIs is
Key
performance indicators. I had them in the top of my head, I promise.
So these are steps that you need to follow in order to achieve the goals that you set.
Yeah. So for example, if you have a certain goal by the end of the event, I want to have this achieved, or during the event, I want to achieve this. The KPIs will help you to achieve that goal and to set you on a clear path. To make sure that you all have all of that aligned and that you know exactly what to do when, it is important to have a calendar. We make calendars ourselves and we think it's very useful. A calendar is basically just goes through everything, like what do you want to post? How do you want to post it? For example, I want to post a video, then. What kind of description would you go with it? What kind of video would it be posting? Would it be a call to action? And all of that, you can add it to your calendar, so you know exactly, even though it might be a few months away and you don't know the actual content yet, that you know exactly your plan, what do you want to do, so you don't run over it and you don't forget about the stuff. And then we have also very important an elevator pitch. An elevator pitch is a pitch that basically you give to someone that you meet in an elevator. For your write-up, maybe 2 minutes. And in that elevator pitch, there is exactly everything that person needs to know, and that will get that person excited to come to your event. It is that moment specifically, that minute and a half that you can sell yourself, your event, your organization, your big happening in that elevator pitch.
Yeah, and of course, for this elevator pitch, media's outlets, because that's what we're connecting here. This is very important because if you want to pitch the story of your events to someone that doesn't know anything about scouting and what you're doing, this gives them an idea of what the event is all about. And like Myles said, you can decide whether you go big on media outlets or not. But of course, this depends on the kind of event you want. So if you have like a global scope, so if you want to go internationally with this because it's a World Scout Jamboree, which media outlets are you contacting? So you can go for TV, you can go for radio, you can go for digital. If it's a smaller event and you want to just have like a national scope and only national media, you can go for TV or digital, so websites, news websites, radios or newspapers. If it's a very, very small event, you might want just local newspapers in your city, in your town. And this can also mean TV if you have them, digital, so like a blog post, a website, or you can also have like in the local newspaper. And then since this is a scouting event, you can also have a scouting scope. So this could mean contacting anything or anyone that you know that posts about scouting. It could be wasn't if they accepted. It could be like a small influencer that talks about scouting a lot, and you might want them to talk about your event. So you have like a bigger audience and a wider reach of people to know about this event that you're planning. And then this brings us to our communications team. So we wrote Marcom's team. That's the word we use for marketing and communications. And again, depending on the specificities of your event, the team that you get together will look different. So that means you have more of different roles, or just doesn't make sense to have some specific roles. And again, this depends on your event and how big or small it is, and if it has on-site program, off-site program. So if there are activities that are happening on the place that you're setting your event on, if there are activities happening elsewhere, and of course, if there are activities happening at different times for different groups. So this is what a communications team can look like. You have content creators writing promotional content for your event before and after, and this can look like guest testimonials, some articles, press releases, updating online texts and blogs. You can have graphic designers that would support your team with all the necessary designs. So it could be for social media, printing materials, invitations, anything on the screen. We have story managers and media support. So this would be the people developing the stories themselves for the scout groups at the event. So if you want to hand out something for the scouts groups to post when they go back home to their local communities or local newspaper or anything. You can have photographers taking pictures during the event, videographers taking videos of the event, and then press relations. So if you have a big event and you want to have media, so anyone from TV or radio, newspapers at the event, you can have someone pitching the stories to them before the event to try to get them there, and then during the event itself, they can be managing the media team that will show up there. So, you know, you control kind of what they can see or not for the event, so they can capture all the highlights that you want to have conveyed. So of course, it's depending on the event you have, you can not have content creators or press relations or story managers, and you can have a lot of photographers and videographers and graphic designers, or you can have all of them. So again, depends on your resources and your resources and your local reality.
Okay, so imagine this is the big moment. This is the event. Then how are you gonna manage all of that? So in a moment, it's very important for you to capture the moment. So make sure that your team knows what to do, knows their tasks, knows all the things what are going on. And when you have all of that done, then they know exactly what they need to do, what needs to be captured, how do you want to capture it, make a list. Like if you have, for example, a special kind of photos that you always have, make a checklist for them. Like what can they take for photos, videographers, how do you want that? For the rest of the media team, how do you usually write your stuff, your blogs, your articles, for them to know exactly how to accommodate the things that you actually want. And during the event, it's very important to keep your audience exactly informed on what's going on. Show the people the videos, photos of what's going on. Show people stuff for newsletters that you send out, circulars, and all that stuff to keep everyone engaged and show everyone what an amazing event it's going to be and what it is. And it's also time to. It's also important to allocate a meeting every day. Usually we do that at the end of the day. So you go through everything that went well during the day. What can you improve for the next day? What is things that you were very proud of? What are achievements of the day? Celebrate those as well, because those are really important moments. Also important at the end of the day is to look for the next day. What is coming up? What might be a struggle? What do you not feel comfortable with yet? Speak everything through. Just make sure that they are completely comfortable with what is coming up the next day, so they feel very motivated and confident in what you're basically asking them to do.
Yeah, precisely. So for a smoothly run event, just to make sure that everything goes according to plan, or if it doesn't, because again, we all know that always happens when you're not the least expecting it. So to make sure everything goes smoothly and that we can take care of all unexpected situations, there's something they should remember to do. So again, like Myles said, make sure everyone is aware of their own tasks and create lists if needed, so we don't have anyone roaming around when they should be working or not. Make a schedule for them. So we make with the thing here at KISC we call rotas, which are basically allocating people to different areas in different days and different times of the day, especially for those that work across different areas. So this is something that you might want specific to your communications team and allocate them, or allocate the photographers, for instance, for different activities, and this could mean different locations as well. You just use this list as well with the task list to make sure you have a content library for the future, so you can use things after the event is done for promotion materials, whether it's events like this or just promoting things that happened in the past, just to create more awareness and credibility and gain your following as well. That's one thing. So you should also make sure you have enough human resources. So for instance, if when it comes to photography and video coverage specifically, or this as an example, if you have a lot of activities happening during the day at the same time. So again, focusing on a large scale event, and there are different events that you have scattered around your site. You might want to have photographers and videographers allocated to different events. So you need to make sure you have enough people, or if you don't have enough people, at least that the highlights or the most important ones are being covered. And of course, the most important ones will look different in different events. Then if you have a big event and you have immediate on-site, so people from radio, from TV, from newspapers, externally, so not anyone that you hired to be there, You should have an external media day just to make sure your human resources are well, if it just to make sure this is the best use of your human resources. So just allocate a day when this is going to be the highlight of the event, or if there's something that is very important that you want to cover, or you think it's going to bring media from here. So of course, for instance, if you have the prime minister of your country doing the speech in your event, because it is a big event and it's 50 years of your NSO or 50 years of whatever, and you have, again, like a very important person, be it like the prime minister or a local politician or someone that is very important in your community, and this would bring the media there. This would be the day that you would want them there. So of course, this has to be kind of a hook for external media. Then, of course, everyone wants to be part of everything during an event, but you should make sure that your team is well rested and they're working the amount of hours that you decided they should. So of course, if it's a 2-day event, maybe everyone's going to be working the 2 days, but if it's a 10-day event, maybe they should be working on the 7 out of the 10. So make sure everyone has enough rest and enjoy the event too, because hectic events, when they're big events, they're very hectic and everyone wants to be part of everything. And even if you're not working on the event, you will be tired yourself. I mean, we're all scouts here. I think we've all been to 7-day events with things like that. And even we're just the participants, we get to the end of it exhausted. So of course, if anyone is working on it, it's going to be an extra layer of tiredness on them. So just make sure everyone is comfortable and they have their time off to enjoy it. And of course, you should have a meeting before the event, where you can get your entire team together, not even just comms, like everyone, just to run through everything and make sure that you know what is happening.
So when the event is over, wrapping up is one of the most important parts of the event as well. It is not just, oh, everyone's off site, we're done, we close it up, we wrap it up, pack it in a box and put it on the shelf. Wrapping up an event is crucial when it comes to engaging with your audience. So for example, what we do is we send emails to all the participants saying thank you for joining us and thank you for making this event such a big event and for being part and making memories with us, as well as giving them the opportunity to share feedback with us, because we see a lot of things on site, but we're not able to see everything. So to make sure that we are aware of way more things than we initially thought we would be, we put in a feedback form. You can ask feedback in a lot of different ways. We do it through a form, so we can just put in a link in an email, and people can show through everything, what they thought of the event, how they heard of the event, which is something we put in as well as in our normal bookings, in basically everything. Is how do you come across our events? Did you learn it from social media? Did you hear it from friends? Just to know, okay, this is if you're doing an event like this next time, okay, how did people from our participants from our event last time find out about this? And how can we work with that? Or how can we put that information to our use? And it's important to share your successes, not just with social media, posting the highlights of your event, but as well as writing an article to either local newspapers or local radio stations. It could be regional, could be nationwide, could be worldwide, showing people what an amazing event it was, showing your successes, maybe statistics, how many participants were there, the highlights, maybe put in some testimonials of people so everyone exactly knows what an amazing thing it has been. And important is to write everything down. For the people for next event, it is important to write everything in a report so people could see for the next event, what went wrong, what is things that you missed, what is things that they could do better. They can learn from your mistakes, but also build on the things that you did right. We write everything in the report for the whole event, not just communications, but our program team does that, our booking team does that. That goes about participations, our logistics team. In that way, we have a whole report, and trust me, it's a book, it's like this thick. And then people for next upcoming events, they know exactly what to do, what not to do, and they can build on your experiences.
Yeah, so just to sum this up a bit now. So we went through everything that should happen before, after, and during the event. Again, the thank you notes, for instance, you don't only have to share it with the participants, just since I'm remembering now. So you don't always have to share it with the participants, but you can also thank everyone that in some way was part of the event. So that can be external partners, anyone that sponsored you, external media that went on site there. And the articles, you can also write them for your own sake, so for your NSO, for your own scout group, for whatever you are part of, and it doesn't always have to be just for the outside world to see. So this brings us to the end of our session. Thank you very much for joining. This is now the space for you to ask us questions. Of course, we're basing this off for a very specific kind of events, and also our experience here at KISC, especially for this year with the centenary year. We have 7 different events, and 7 events that are very different from each other. Of course, this doesn't mean like everything that we say here is just set in stone, and that's what you should do for your own event, because again, different events mean different approaches and different solutions. But now it's your turn. Ask us whatever is on your mind. If you have anything that you have any concerns about what we said.
If you have any questions, you can just write them on the chat, or you can raise your hand so we can request that you unmute.
I'm very happy we're that clear.
You sure? Didn't we talk too fast? Oh, how do you promote the event in different languages? Okay, so for a large scale event, for instance, so let's think, okay, for us in this case would be Candid 100, the biggest event of our year. And I mean, we have the resources to do this because KISC is the only World Scout Center. So this is, I mean, we have more resources than maybe you would have, depending on what kind of event you're doing. But to promote for different languages, we would either ask someone that we know that speaks a different language that we want to target the promotion for, to translate the material for us. If they have any kind of background knowledge on a specific country or a specific area, we would ask them for their feedback on what works well in your or on this side of the world, for instance. So I know there are countries that are not in Europe that don't use Instagram that much. So is it as efficient to use Instagram for them as it is for us here in Europe? I think that those would be like the main points. So asking someone to translate your materials, asking someone with the background on different parts of the world or different backgrounds from your own, how would it be best tailored for that part of the world?
As well as what I can add to that is when, for example, when I make social media posts, when I make social media packages for all our target countries, and there are quite a lot at the moment. That is a lot of languages that we're doing, as well as asking people to translate it. We are making packages with, for example, captions and ideas, and all our flyers and leaflets that we're giving out to people. We are giving people the opportunity to to choose whatever language they would prefer. So we have the 5 basic WASM languages that we're offering most of the time, and sorry,
Which are
which are French, English, Arabic, Russian, and Spanish. So the 5 languages that we use, and luckily we have people that translate it for us to Russian and Arabic, because that's not something I have the skills to do. Unfortunately, I would love to, but we give the people that send it out for us. So, for example, NSOs or regions, we give them the opportunity to choose whichever language they would prefer. So for you, if it's easier, if you make a list of the languages that you would like and that you think would suit your event or your promotions, make a list out of the languages. If you don't know the languages, ask the people that basically target exactly the ones you have. Ask them, okay, what kind of language would you prefer? And then try to translate it in some way, and then offer them exactly the ones that they need. So the people that would share your information and share your promotions would have to do as least as possible, because in that way they will actually put in the effort to help you putting it out there.
Yeah, just adding a little bit to what you just said. When it comes to marketing, and what I learned from studying marketing as well, is that you have to think that people are lazy and they will not do anything for you as long as you don't do anything for them. So if you get all of the work yourself, you translate everything, you send out to everyone that you need to, and they just need to distribute it, that is better than just giving them, oh, this is it, you can do it yourself. Maya, you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question for you. First off, thank you so much for the presentation. It was really useful and very insightful. I wanted to ask, you spoke a lot about, tips and things that worked for you, but keeping in mind that, you said, obviously this year is a big year and you've already had like a lot of events happening. If I could flip, your conversation, what are some of the things that you found that didn't work, that should be avoided, that weren't particularly useful to you? Maybe things that surprised you.
I think what we did in the beginning is that we took every opportunity that we got, which is basically every little or big journalist that approached us or that we approached. We said, yes, please come to us. And at some point that came so much that they would just show up. And that is something at all times you're trying to avoid. You don't want people you cannot accommodate showing up at your event beforehand, during, or after, trying to get a story. The thing is, when journalists are coming towards you, that means that they have something that they want to get to know from you. So they just keep on pulling and keep on coming. If you need to tell a story, you need to approach them and you need to know exactly what am I going to say. And in that way, they're getting the information that you want them to know. If they come towards you and you don't have anything planned well enough, they will get the information, then they will send out information, maybe information you don't want people to know. For example, we had a plan with a journalist, and he came about an hour early. And there was that much communication on our side or on his side, we don't really know. But it's very important that in the moment, you need to act so rapidly that you prefer to have everything sorted out. So when you have opportunities, make sure still in those moments, you set ground rules and guidelines for yourself and don't cross them. Otherwise, they will bite you in the back later.
Sure.
Anything else?
I'm thinking, I think sometimes we are very worried in getting all the small details that we sometimes forget the big picture as well. So if it feels like, oh, it's very obvious that we need to do this, I do not need to worry about it now, or I do not need to add this to the tasks, to the task list or anything, you should, because with all the small details, it's very easy to forget about the things that would be essential and very easily done otherwise. So just keep that in mind as well. I don't remember anything else at the moment.
I think that was it.
Yeah. I think having the timeline and the plan and the task list for everyone is what helps us make sure that everything's going according to plan, or it's easier at least to figure out if there's anything that is lacking at the moment. Just to
We have a question from Sharif. Oh, sorry.
yeah, no, go on.
Hi guys,
I
thank you for such informative and really needed session. I have actually 3 questions regarding the communication team structure.
Yeah.
And an extra one. So I see that you have a press relations team. Would that be a replacement for a public relations team? What are the differences, and if there is any? Second, do you want me to say all the questions and then you answer, or
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
just
okay, I'll just write them down then.
yeah, all right. Okay, so that was my first question regarding the communication team. Another question would be that, is there any importance to include a sub-team for marketing and maybe another for digital to take care of websites, social media applications? Is there, if there's any? Or it's included in another team that one of the 6, I mean. Yep.
Sorry, I thought you were
No.
done.
No. I have another question about the teams, and then another question in general. So where in these sub teams lies a communication crisis management? I mean, if there's anything that happens, who should be accountant to take care of it, to publish press releases, to talk to the media if an incident happened, let's say at the Jamboree? Who out of these 6 teams should take care of this, if not and outside of these 6? Finally, maybe I was asleep or something. I didn't get totally the have an external media team. What exactly this means? I missed that out. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. So for the teams, the communications, press relations and everything, I think it would depend on your resources, be it how many people you have as staff, how the event is going to be. So of course you can have one very big communications team that accommodates all of these people we talked about, the marketing, websites, social media, apps, like you said, or you can have very specific teams that are just focused on that very specific thing. So again, I think it depends a little bit. So for us, for instance, to give you an example, maybe it's easier. So for Canada 100, this is going to be like a 7-10 days event that we'll have in summer, kind of like a Jamboree feeling. We will have just the communications team, and this communications team will allocate all the different roles that we talked about here. So this will be the Canada 100 team for communications. And then we have a separate team for the app that we have. The website, it falls on the 2 of us because we're the ones doing that usually when we don't have events. So this is tailored for Canada 100. But then we had KISC Jyoti in February. So it was kind of like Jyoti. I think that's easier for people, for you to understand how it was. So it was an online event, a global event as well, for people from all around the world that couldn't get to KISC physically or Switzerland. And for this team, we had a communications team as well. So we did the social media, the marketing, partially the website, but we also had a specific team just working on the website itself and building it up from scratch and doing all the backend things that we couldn't do ourselves. So I think for all the different roles you want to have, you need to think about what different tasks you have, what different roles you would need, and making a team, like how would it make sense to split the team. So of course, if you have a team of 20 people, sometimes it would be harder to have just one person overseeing everything, because the small things could fall through the cracks because not the one person isn't paying attention to everything that all the 20 people are doing. But you can have like different hierarchies and have maybe 20 people here, and then split those 20 people into groups of 5, and then have someone from them like be managers of those smaller sized teams, and those managers would basically how do you say it? What?
Reports.
Thank you. Would report to the head of all the communications team. So again, I think it kind of depends on how you want to do it, how your team would rather do it, and how it would work the best for you, because at the end, this is how you want it to work better for you and for your specific team. And again, it could be different for different events, as well as it could be different for different teams. So it could be the same event that happens every year, but if the team is different people will work differently as well, then we'll have different work methods. So as long as you have everything that you want to have for your event, and as long as it makes sense for the scale of your event, I think it would be something that depends on who you will have. Now the crisis management, for instance, I think it would usually be for public relations and press relations, because I think this would be the people that would be the most used to these kinds of situations, like speaking to the public in a crisis situation. So of course you will not give this to a photographer that is just very good at taking pictures, because maybe public speaking isn't their forte, so they will not know how to convey a message that keeps everyone calm, that makes them understand what is happening without having to get into too much detail or panicking anyone. Because I think crisis management is like a whole thing in itself, and we can go on and on about it.
I think, well, especially when it comes to crisis management is something that needs a specific way of working. It needs expertise, and it needs people that have done it before. It is something that takes learning. It's not something that you can read in books or something like that. It's something that you need experience in to exactly know what to do in a certain situation. Now, there's a lot of press relations teams out there and people out there that have worked in this situation for so long that they know almost for every situation whatever you need. And it's important to build on them, on their experiences. So beforehand, we always write down a list of things that possibly could go wrong, and we write down a message. And that sounds very wrong. For example, we are in Switzerland, a lot of mountains. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong in the mountains. For example, what if someone died? There's a message that we need to put out there. And it is a message that you need to have ready almost beforehand, before something happens. So there's a lot you can think of ahead of time. What are the possibilities of what can go wrong? And how can we think about that already and not necessarily try to avoid the situation, because you're trying to do that anyway, but how do you respond to that? And of course, there are always things that you have no idea what's going to happen. You have no idea of knowing what you will need to say in that moment. You will always be some kind of speechless or kind of shocked in that moment. But it's important for you to know who is doing it. So no matter how big or small your event is, it is good to have a list. It's good to have something to hold on to. Just some lines, they are good already. And then to make a plan with just your small team, usually press relations, they are used to talking to people, they're used to the situation. but just to let them know, like, okay, what if something happens? This person's doing that, this person's doing that, this person's doing that. Why? Because even in a crisis situation, it is important that the one that's supposed to be managing that knows what to do as well. If you're managing the one that should be managing the crisis, it's going to be a bigger crisis, not just in general, but within your team. So you need to know what's going to happen, who is doing what, and in that case, yes, there is a crisis going on, but you will handle the crisis.
Yeah, and then lastly, for your external media teams question, maybe I wasn't very clear about this. Okay, so getting the example of Candor 100 again. So 10-day event, Jamboree feeling, Swiss Alps, 2,000 participants around that. So it's a lot of people at the same time. It's a lot of program happening, a lot of activities here in the chalet, where we have like our offices and everything, as well as outside, surrounding mountains, people hiking everywhere, climbing mountains, and all of the other things we're planning on. So this is a lot of things happening. And of course, there's a lot of things that the communications team is doing during this event. So if you have reached journalists, newspapers, radio stations, TV stations, anything or anyone that is outside of your control, outside of your organization, and they will come here to cover this event. So they will write about it, they will let people know about this event. You would like to have everyone from the same, or everyone from the external media, so these people that you contacted that are not from your organization, you would like them to come on the same day, just to make it easier on your human resources, your press relations team, because even though they are the ones that will do this, they will not be only doing the press relations management of the external media team. So if you want to have people from outside of your organization covering your event for their newspapers or their TV stations or whatever it is easier to have it all either in just one day or like specific days, so that your press relations team can focus on other tasks. They are not just managing the journalists and sitting down with them, talking about the event, giving them the key messages, showing them around the things that you want them to see and the highlights of the event, because it's just easier on them to have this specific day and not having people show up at random times when you don't want them to, because either you have other things to do, because that is the reality. There's a lot of things happening during the event and you have a lot of things to do. So you don't want journalists to show up at the time that you don't want them to. And it's easier to have just one team managing them. I don't know if this answers your question or if it was clear enough. You can ask me or us again if we didn't cover what you were expecting. Okay, but taking the Ken 100 example again. So again, this event, we will have 3 days for, we're going to call it, or internally here at KISC, we call them VIP days. So this will be 3 days of the event that will be the highlight of the event. And there is the days that we want the journalists to be coming. So all the important people that we want to be here will be specifically on this day. So let's, for an instance, pretend that someone like the Prince of Luxembourg is coming here. We would want them, the Prince of Luxembourg, to come here on the same day that the external media is coming. Okay, yeah.
I guess if there are no more questions, we can end with these notes.